How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Trace Garage. I'm excited today because I finally get a chance to get back to work on the engine swap on the white Fiero. So you saw in the last episode, if you're watching it, that basically I managed to get this thing picked up, the whole engine subframe slammed in here, and it's sitting now on all fours and it's ready to finish up the swap. So hopefully all of my wiring lines up. Hopefully all of our plumbing and everything drops together pretty simply. I'm really kind of hoping for that, which is why my plan today is I'm just going to take you along as I just go through and plug in, hook up, stuff together, everything that will currently fit. That way we know what other final things I might need to track down, whether it be oddball parts, anything needs to be fabricated, anything like that, just to make this all work. But I think pretty much everything's ready to go together. Now, getting to the fabrication part, there is a little bit of stuff, and I've got it over here on the bench. I'll bring you over here and show it. I managed to track down the crossover for the exhaust, and I've got a bushing kit for the dog bone, because the dog bone that fits the 4-cylinder doesn't fit the V6. It's too long, so we're going to switch it out. And the wiring for the alternator switchover. So I'll bring you over here on the bench, show you all that before I get to work. And then, like I said, I'm going to jump into here, start stuffing all of this stuff together, start finding out what doesn't fit, what does, and where everything's going to go, where everything's going to live. Once we get to the point where, as near as I can tell, everything is assembled and done, except for what's sitting over here on the bench needs to be dealt with, we're good. Then I can set aside all the time and start fixing all this stuff. So cool. Let me bring you over here and show you what I got. Okay, so move some stuff out of the way. What I've got going on here, start with the simplest stuff, I guess. This is the pigtail for the late model 1988, or at least late model alternator that goes in these cars. Now, the switchover between the cars is that the earlier models have only two. They only have a hot and a ground. As near as I can tell, looking at all the adapters, basically this middle wire just gets plugged off. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this and solder it in with the old 2-wire connector, plug it in, and hopefully it's charging when we get it started. If it's not charging, we'll deal with it after that. But I'm pretty sure this is going to work. If it doesn't, I'll let you know, and we'll figure that out. Next thing that needs to happen, like I was talking about with the dog bone, I have a bushing kit. Now, it's pretty reasonably priced to go and get a bushing kit from a Fiero store or something like that, or get a dog bone that's made. But if you're on the cheap like me, you can do this. You can get these bushings. They come with the sleeves. You can put it all together. Put the whole thing together. You got to get these hot, push them out. I will probably have to heat it, and if I do, I'll show you the trick for that, or at least the trick I've always done. But this will work. This is, in fact, bring you over here to this car. Years ago, someone did that to this one. This is the stock dog bone on my black car. Somebody literally a decade ago did that, and I got it with some other parts. So I know it'll work. It can be switched over and it'll fit, but we just need to do it. Now that brings us to the last piece of work I'm really not looking forward to, and that's this exhaust manifold. So I went ahead and peeled away the heat shield that was on this thing, because I started looking at it and I could see in a few spots there was what looked like soot on it. And that's not good. That implies that it's got an exhaust leak somewhere. So luckily, to some degree, the EGR studs and the EGR mount all appear to be good. So this isn't broken. We can just slap another EGR valve on here and it'll be fine. But I got to looking at this thing more, and I didn't pay for this. And so, you know, my friend who got it to me, like, I still appreciate it, but I'm going to have to do some work. This is where the old studs were that mounted it to the downpipe. They are broken. They're gone. Someone just sawed them off. So I'm going to need to figure out what I'm going to do about this. The current plan, or what I'm thinking to do, is I've got the exhaust systems outside. I'll figure out how long they need to be by mocking this up with them. And then we're going to hack these off and probably weld long bolts to these. And if I weld the long bolts to them, we should be able to then put nuts and spring bolts and everything on here and then reattach it. Now, one of the things I'm not looking forward to is if you look, we actually have a crack at the point where this joins together, and that's where that soot I was talking about was coming out. So I'm going to have to actually take these and weld them up. Now, I don't know, you're supposed to drill holes at the ends and weld them. I'd probably just weld them back up, to be honest, because it'll probably be okay. But at some point, this got hot and probably got shocked with water and it cracked. So that's going to take some time to work with that. So that's why what I would like to do is just jump in here and start getting all of this stuff put together, because almost all this should all just fall together. It looks like a mess right now, but it should. And that's what I want to do, is get it all kind of figured out, slammed together, and figure out if anything's missing. If anything is, we know we need to get it or make something to make it work. So that being said, let me get you set up and I'll get to work. My plan is we're going to start finishing up with subframe mounting, which is just get these nuts for the strut tops tightened down with their little brackets and these little aftermarket hydraulic deals. And then I'll just start working my way around. Start hooking up the shifter cables and running the wiring through the firewall and getting all of this set up. And hopefully, here in just a little bit, everything's actually mocked together, and all we have to do is the stuff that I know we have to do, which is on the bench. So let's get to work. Down in here. All right. So let's see. Is this my P6 PCM? Which one's which? That is a 4-cylinder PCM. So this is a V6. Okay. Get in here. Let's see what I have. Should be this nice and straight. Clip, but okay, never mind. Just clips in. All right. If I recall, earlier ones have like a slide-in clasp. Okay. But so PCM, we can plug and play at this point. If all of my wiring's right, this whole thing should actually work. That'd be pretty cool. So I can work the PCM in here. I'm gonna need, what is it? Oh, it's mounted differently. Might need to figure out something for, I guess, the 4-cylinder to do. It's another way, I guess, to tell 4 cylinders apart. The PCM mounts into the frame in here vertically. It goes in like that. You've got nuts top and bottom. On 6 cylinders, it's on the side. So we might have to rig something there, but I'm not too worried about it. This is our body side harness. plugs together. Okay. So and there's our OBD connection. So I'll leave this alone for now. We'll come back and button this all up when we're a little bit closer. But that way at least this wire harness is now secured. And a PCM is sitting in here. And we're getting close. Cool. Move this 4-cylinder radiator hose. Which that's, oh, cool. I'll show you that in a second too. Fluid everywhere. But looks like we were also fixing to have a leak with it. It's got like a cut. I guess the frame rail was tearing into it, but it's too big. It's not going to fit for our application anymore. Mostly water anyway. Alright, but next I can probably get that pipe hooked up here in a minute. But what I want to do is start routing over. I've got the actual factory air box for the 6-cylinder, and the relays are going to go here over on the side for the AC and the fuel pump. So we're getting there. Grab those parts. This is not a factory bolt, but it should work. This is going to be attaching there's two wire harness grounds that have to go to the block right here, or cylinder head rather. So stick them together and put them in. Try and do this as simply as possible. Threaded, and then I'll orient them so they're not touching the exhaust. There we go. Let's get them oriented downwards where we want them. Alright, those are on. Okay, so those are in place. Next, I guess let's get the slave cylinder installed. Pretty sure we're gonna have to bleed it no matter what when we do get this thing all back together, but at least for now, put it in place. So it's gonna come off nice and easy. Back in place. We are going to need this though. This in. There we go. Where's the cup on this? Oh, there we go. Is that the cup? There we go. I think. And like I was saying, I think unfortunately this thing's going to need a new slave cylinder. But for now, maybe we can get this one to work to get the swap going, because it looks like it's leaking a little, or it's showing evidence that it has leaked, and that's less than good. Room for a ratcheting wrench? We do. Alright, so that's slave cylinder's back on again. So in theory, you have clutch throw. That'd be pretty cool. Alright, now shifter cables. Route these things. Where's this wire in the way? This needs to go elsewhere. It's the main hot line for the starter. It needs to go under these. In a way. I actually have to take it off and rewrap it. We'll see. It depends. Alright. But let's get these in. kind of idiot-proof, but I'm trying to remember which one goes where. There you go, that'll work. I have to figure out the routing. There we go. Now that I've knocked that all down. Okay. Come on. Go in your home. There. Okay. Pull this back out. Put our little bracket on so they'll be captive. And like I said, they're different sizes on either side. It's at least for the Isuzu transmission. I think even for the other ones, it's pretty much kind of idiot proof. It just kind of only goes together one way. Let me tighten that down. So these will be captive. They can't go nowhere anymore. And we're gonna obviously have to figure out the routing so they're not impinging on the throttle like they are currently. But this is swap stuff. There we go. Route them down. There we go. There's something resembling shifter stuff. Alright. We'll get them on, and the true test will be we'll just get inside and see if we can move the shifter arm. If everything shifts, if it can change through all the gears, then whatever routing they're in is, I guess, at least okay. But that's the test. Alright, so these are what I was messing with the last couple minutes. These are the shifter cables. Just threading these in and tightening these down. Alright, so let me get in the car real quick and see if we have the ability to at least change through all the gears. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, reverse. Cool. So that's gonna work. Let me start. Well, I've got stuff. I've got paint drying on the other intake parts. Let me start running wires over here. So this is our main body connection for our engine harness, and it's going to go on here. We should have this right here. These interlock, so we should interlock like so. See? And this is where I had to switch the starter pin. And yeah, so let me see if I can tell you which one it was. It looks like it was my starter, assuming everything I've done is correct, and I think it is. The starter lead for this automatic early 80s harness. So this is an early, not an 88 harness we're using. Had the starter run to, looks like it was, clear it up, A4. No, yes. Yeah, A4 on your body side harness. And based on the wiring harness stuff I looked up, and you might want to confirm it for yourself, but it went from A4 to, what is that, E as in Edward, and 2, I believe. This thing's grungy, but yeah, E2. So from A4 to E2 on the body side harness. And that should hopefully get us going. And we also have this lead right here. This is main hot for the harness, along with, this is a body side harness as well. It's gonna be hot, and then this one for the battery lead. So all this goes onto this junction down here. This is all has to do with, I believe, for the starter. Got a couple goofy sized little SAE nuts. I think they're SAE. Don't know. I'm not really worried about it. I always usually put the double one goes on first,
This one goes on the top lead. They're also kind of idiot-proofed. They're sized so they can only go on the lead they actually belong to. And they've got these notches here that they fit in to help them fit in nicely. So we've got our main battery power lead hooked up. We've got the body side and we've got the engine side harnesses, so we can at least spin our nuts down here to keep them captive. And we'll want to make sure we come back and tighten them. We figure out what size these are so that you know, assuming yours has what I believe are factory sizes here. Okay, I'm back. So you might want to write this down just to save yourself the aggravation, or you can play find the socket like I do pretty much every time. But assuming yours has the factory sized fasteners for these hold downs, you're going to have, I believe, so let's see here. The bottom one is going to be a 7/16. The top one is going to be a 3/8. And the one that holds this junction in place is going to be a 1/4. Why? I don't know. That's just how I guess it was designed, but I know I always end up wasting time trying to figure out what sizes those are, so it is now recorded for posterity. If you would like to remember those numbers or write them down so you have them. So I believe these are the factory sizes. Alright, this junction. Alright, so these are now connected. So our main power for our harness and everything is now hooked up. What I'm going to do now is, I guess, as much as I don't need to, but I do need to, I'm going to go ahead and grab the battery for it and put it in here just enough to make sure I get the hot lead and the ground lead set up in such a way that they're happy, and then take it right back out again because it doesn't need to be in here, and that way I can keep it on the maintainer, because it's probably still going to be a little while for this thing's running again. Well, let me grab that. Get the battery down in here. Okay. Alright. So, hot lead is going to go on there like that, which will get it out of the way of everything. I've got my ground. Let's see how ground wants to go in here. So that should fit there. And then our little ground, there's a little screw down here that you have like a offshoot ground goes into. So we get that in place just to orientate all of this. And then, like I said, the hot wire is going to end up right there. The ground, you need to flip it around because I do believe this goes there. Yeah, this should go down there, around. On that, and that, so that gets it out of the way. All right, yeah, let me show you where that went. So, since you've got your ground wire under, let's see, ground wire right here, which is going to run, I've got it tethered with its little connection, and it's currently hanging, but it's going to go onto your battery over here. And then we have, let's see, down here, it's hard for you to see. You've got a stud, or you should have a stud down here coming off your water pump just under your oil pressure sending unit, and it will thread on there. Specific orientation, you'll have to figure out which way is happiest for yours, but then a nut just goes on it. That on there. And now you can move this thing around all you want. That wire's out of the way. And get this thing wherever it's going to be happiest so that your battery leads actually line up. What is mine catching on? There. There. Okay, that'll work. So now that'll reach over there. This guy is lined up. Now I just need to tighten up that ground. Okay, next thing I want to do is start trying to fit the factory air intake box for a 6-cylinder. Now it looks like I'm going to have some fitment issues with these Isuzu cables, but there's no real way around that. This GM never designed the Isuzu to be behind the V6, so we'll see how we get it all to fit. But first I need to go ahead and start putting the intake canister box thing in here. So I've got it, like I said, I cleaned it up, put a little bit of paint on it, just to, it's not going in rusty. But, let's see, so this will go in like that. There's a little pocket. It slides down into your rubber ducting. And then you've got a couple of screw tabs here. Let's see if I can get these lined up. Okay, there's one. Okay, so the pedestal, I guess you could call it, is in now, and it has its little 90-degree duct down to the factory ram, which is actually one of the cooler, I'd argue one of the cool design features on these things when they were new, is that they actually have a factory cold air that just ducts out the side of the body. Let me grab the actual canister box for that. Let's see if we can line it up. So this goes down in here like that. Okay. And the cap will hold it in place. Let me see. This is the factory intake tube. Will it fit? Actually, let me try. Pull this back out. This on the throttle body. There we go. This guy into place. Something like that. Okay. That might work in a kind of janky, stuffed in there kind of way. Let me grab the rest of it. Okay, so I'm not completely happy with it, but this is the arrangement that I've kind of come up with for now for the air tube. Because the Isuzu transmission cables are routed in the way they are, they directly interfere with
the V6's intake tube, which is something that in all my years I've never run into. Obviously, I mean, the Isuzu was never offered with the V6. They didn't have to worry about it fitting. I've just never heard anyone mention it. So this will fit. It's in here. I need to put new clamps on it. And it's just going to have to rest kind of at that angle. But it'll have to do for now. I'll just get new clamps, like I said. And we'll get it in here. But it's just going to have to rest back here a little bit. Come on. But it'll have an intake. It's just not going to be the way I want it to be. If in the event that anyone ever switches it to a 4-speed or a Getrag, that won't ever be an issue. But in any case, next thing that's coming to my mind, I'm not really looking forward to, but I need to do is switch out the throttle cable. So that's not going to work. I've got a spare down in here. I just got to climb back inside the car, start taking kind of the center console apart, get under the dash, and replace that. Here, try not to break anything else. So I need to get access. The cable for the throttle runs through the back all the way here down to the pedal. So I'm trying to recall exactly. I know I at least need to pull this out. And I think I can basically snake under. There's going to be like a little U-shaped clip that's going to mount the cable in place, and then it has like a cotter pin style clip or something like that down on the pedal. First I need to get all this out. That's interesting. It's going to be 4 7mm. Center console. So one nice thing on these, the interiors are pretty much entirely put together with, I believe it's 7mm headed screws and of various lengths, a couple different lengths, and the I think they're T15s, the little torque screws. Shifter ball. All right. Okay. So, to start, or at least part of it, need to remove, this is the gas pedal. Need to back off these. These are the 2 pivot kind of housing screws, and you can see it hangs over the pedal itself. The arm hangs over into there. Once that's removed, you can kind of lift it up out of the way and you'll be able to pull the cable actually off of it. So let me get these fasteners off. They're of course been on here. Well, that's actually interesting, that wasn't all that tight. In any case, we pull these off and we should be able to snake it up and off of here. Like I said, I still need to look. I'm pretty sure, if I recall, there is a bracket inside the console here, the center tunnel. And if you don't remove it, this thing's just stuck. So let me get these out first. Okay, yeah, someone's been in here before, because these are not, I'm pretty sure, well, maybe they're factory. It doesn't seem kind of long. All right, see if I can snake this up and out. I'll show you what it is. I just gotta get it up out of there and I'll show you. Okay, so I got that cable twisted up and out of the way, but you can see that's the way the cable's mounted. You've got basically, like, see that yellowish pinch together thing with the cable through it? All you really gotta do is pinch it together and press it through, and you should be able to get it apart. So let me reach in there and get that apart. I'm up here now. So I got that cable disconnected down there. So what I'm trying to do is, if I can buy myself a little more room, take this screw out. 7mm, just kind of
one, holding something that's broken, but see if I can lift stuff a little more. So I gotta get, let's see, because the cable runs right through here. Let me try loosening up a few more things. See if I can get in there. Alright, so clearly things have gotten a little out of hand, but it looks like this is what you're going to have to do to actually get at the throttle cable. Or what I had to do, at least. I don't know anyone else will ever do this. But you can see, so, see if I can get you routed and oriented. This right here is our throttle cable. This runs to the engine, to the throttle pedal, the gas pedal rather. And all the way down here, if you look, get you where you can see, try to get you where you can see, there is all the way, this out of the way, see if I can get it to focus, there we go, all the way down there is a little clip on the end of this cable, and that's what locks it in to the actual car. Once that's released, it might be clamped here a little bit, but then it should be able to come out. So let me get reach down in there, because there's no way I'm going to be able to hold this while I do that. And then hopefully I can just yank the cable out and put a new one in and put the center back together, because we're going to need a shorter one than the one the 4-cylinder used for the 6-cylinder. So, okay. Finally, I was able to get that out. Pull it up. I'm going to have to reroute the new one through here. But the old one out of the way. Alright. Let me move the PCM here. I'm going to have to take off the PCM bracket. And then I can press the throttle cable out the back. So, pull it out. Get out of the way. Alright, so now we just find our throttle cable, trace it, and it's the bottom one here. This big grommet. We're going to have to press out, pry out, or there we go. Pressed out. And now we should be able to pull that out. Let me see. Seriously, why did the throttle cable have to be that long for the smaller engine? And it seems like it would make sense. Just give them interchangeable throttle cables. You wouldn't have to do all this. Alright, that's out. So now, just gotta trace and install the other one, which is much smaller and simpler. Alright, let me see if I can route this new cable down through here. The good thing is, to some degree, the specific orientation of it isn't going to matter too much, because I can still move, I'll be able to move the back end of it pretty infinitely. Just got to get it through. There we go. We're in the hole. Go around the front, pull it through. So, let's see. This is our guy. Gets caught on literally everything. let me pull it through. So this is that clip that goes down way deep in there. But so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and run it down there, hook it in, get it clipped, and then I've actually trimmed and cut the old grommet so it'll fit. So we'll just reuse the old grommet to actually trap like the heat out and stuff like that. So let me get this stuck down in there and the pedal put back together, and hopefully we can start to put this part behind us. Look a little bit like Ray Charles welded this, but that's you know, that's what we're doing here. Sometimes ugly is plenty strong enough. Now this is also part of the reason these look really bad. There's a few reasons these welds look really bad. Some of it is because I'm not good. Another part of it is because it's flux core. So you have, instead of gas shielding your welds and having a big tank, it has flux, and it makes a mess. It really does. And it contributes to really ugly welds. It is not responsible entirely for my terrible welding. But knock the flux off so I can see if I really need to come back and weld anymore, or if they're good enough. Remember, this just basically has to pinch the bottom of the exhaust in place. It doesn't really have to hold any real stress. I think those are going to be length strong enough for that. I mean, they're not coming off when I beat the heck out of them, so they'll be good enough for what they're for. Hopefully they'll clamp it. The last thing I'm going to need to do also to knock all this flux off the top of my toolbox too. Just adds character, right? Most of it's coming off. All right. What I need to do next is we got some cracks down in here. That one in particular, I don't know if you can see it. That one in particular is pretty bad. So I'm gonna see if I can just lay some beads on top. It's not gonna be pretty. I mean, as you can see, let me see if I can get it to focus. That's bad. That's disgusting. But that is probably going to be good enough for what it needs to be. So, let's see if I can lay a little more metal in here. So the way I tell people, I can't remember who I heard this from once, but I liked it. Someone asks you if you're a welder, and you say, no, I'm not a welder. But I glue metal together. It's basically what we're doing here. It's the extent of this program. So I got vice grips to kind of hold this thing up. I'm gonna have to turn it way down too for that, because otherwise it's just gonna blow holes in that pipe. Trust me, I am painfully aware of having done that in the past. all this junk on top of this box. Just organized this like a week ago. Here we are again. All right. Let's see if you can keep your eye right about there. That's where I gotta lay some. I'm gonna turn it way down so go minimum. And see if I can squirt a little metal in here. Well, I need to ground it first. Always remember to ground. Okay. It's the other thing. I weld very infrequently, but when I do, I weld just enough and just good enough generally that I'll kind of get halfway acceptable at it for at least the job I'm doing. Right about the time I'm done, so I'm gonna lay a little more in here. Oh yeah, that's my brand of nasty. I really need to come up with some welding projects to get a bunch of practice in. Just tend to only weld by necessity, and well, this is what you get. Flip it over. Round off. And I do have friends that actually know what they're doing with a welder. And I don't know if those friends are watching any of these videos, but if they are, you know, leave me alone, man. Leave me alone. Got another one. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, right there. Let me see if I can squirt a little more metal in there, plug the hole. That's not good. I know that noise. I blew a hole. It got too hot. So now I'm gonna have to bzz, 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 till it fills it, which is less than great. I thought, it was filling it actually kind of nice. And I was like, maybe I can just stay on the trigger. Nope. And I got it turned all the way down. Alright, well, let me see if I can fill that hole with metal. Wouldn't be the first time I've done it. Cool for a second. Why do you think I wrapped my headers when I was done fixing them? Yeah. That's one reason God made header wraps and grinders. So, a little bit more. is. That's bad. If there was any kind of law enforcement agency associated with welding, they would probably come get me. But the cracks are filled now. And truthfully, I cared. Which, to be perfectly honest, for this I really don't, because these are probably going to crack again. Just hopefully not while I'm worried about it. But I could just grind them and no one would know. But there is metal that has been put in place of the cracks. They've now been touched, like there's welded metal holding these two tubes together too now. Although it's pretty ugly and it's not exactly the strongest thing in the world. Remember, this isn't an oil rig and this isn't some high-end performance thing. This just has to hold this stuff together under fairly reasonable loads, and that just has to plug those holes. So I think that'll work now. Hideous, but I think that will now work. Now the alternator should in theory charge. I just need to extend this wire for the speedometer cable over that way. Okay, so this is what we got. Our speedometer cable is now extended over to the harness, and we have our adapter made, or a new pigtail rather, soldered on for our alternator. So hopefully now it will charge and the speedometer will work. That's pretty cool. It's a step in the right direction. Next is moving on to radiator hoses, fuel lines, a few other odds and ends.
Alright guys, I think the time has finally come, a moment of truth. So, if all my wiring and everything is in here correctly, which, fingers crossed, I think it's actually going to start. I think at this stage, if you were irresponsible enough, it could start. So, got a battery on it, exhaust is on it, wiring, everything's done. Everything on this list, and all of it, we're finished. There is nothing else that is, as near as I can tell, is a barrier to this thing starting. So that brings us to a couple things that we need to start doing that are going to be hopefully giving this thing a chance to not die right out of the box. So first we need to put fluids in it. I've got some fresh 93 octane. Normally I run these on 87, but we'll put the premium stuff in it for startup because the gas that's in it's kind of old. I need to put oil in it. We have this, which is engine break-in oil from Lucas. It's, I believe, yeah, it's straight 30 weight. And the big thing is that makes this important and makes this necessary is so at least on these older engines, like I remember you might remember me talking about in some of the earlier videos, this is what's called a hydraulic flat tappet cam. So it doesn't have little rollers on the lifters or anything like that. That mating surface where the camshaft wears into the spinning lifters is actually really critical. If it goes wrong or doesn't break in correctly, or just plain the oil doesn't have zinc in it, which this has a lot of, on kind of a microscopic scientific level, if it doesn't have that, this thing turns into a milling machine and shears that camshaft to pieces. And we don't want that. So this is straight 30 weight break-in oil. It's 5 quarts, should be enough to go and start this thing up. What we're going to do is we're going to add it, we're going to put it in this car. In the event this actually starts, we have to do a break-in procedure, which is for a flat tappet camshaft, which is what this is. That's the core of this issue, is that camshaft. You put the oil in it, you start the car, come back, make sure your timing is set, and I'll show you how to do that. And if timing's locked in, this thing needs to wing between about 2,500 and about 3,500 RPM, up and down for about 20 minutes, on and off. It's scary because you're sitting here this whole time hoping to God that it doesn't, while you're doing this, it doesn't overheat. It doesn't spring a big leak. It doesn't have some big issue you have to stop in the middle, which is going to complicate whether or not that camshaft breaks in the way it's supposed to. It's a very critical relationship in there, and it has to break in correctly. Again, a reason that the industry's moved away from these things. These high zinc oils help a lot. These make a big difference. And when these things were built, they didn't go through that. When they built these things, they just threw camshafts in them, put oil in them, fired them up, drove them out of the factory, put them on a truck and shipped them, and they were generally okay. But times have changed. The oils aren't the same way. They're better in some ways, but in a lot of ways they're worse. They're not necessarily any better. And we're dealing with all aftermarket stuff. This isn't stuff that GM has spent millions and millions of dollars engineering to work that way. This is all, a lot of it's aftermarket. It's all making it work together. So you have to be careful about that. We also need to put coolant in it. I probably covered that in another video, but I'll show you that in a second too. Regarding the timing, like I was telling you about, you do have to ground out your diagnostic connector. I'll show you how to do that to lock this thing out so it's not trying to give it additional time. So it is a electronically controlled ignition system. It has the ability to add or subtract timing from whatever is base time. So the way these are made, and it's not going to be on here because it's a 4-cylinder, but on the 6-cylinder it would say up here, 10 degrees advanced top dead center. If you've never timed a motor, well, you might need another video on that. But basically, I'll show you how to do it with this one, where it's all already put together. We timed this engine we put together at 0 degrees top dead center when we stabbed the distributor. So if the distributor is not stabbed 180 out, I hope it's not, we should be sitting at 0 degrees top dead center on cylinder 1. So what we want to do is start it up. We'll leave the adjustment bolt on the distributor just slightly loose. You don't want it real loose because then the oil will spring out of there. Just slightly loose. I'll have the timing light set up with the ALDL connector grounded out, and that'll lock this thing out so it doesn't give it any extra time. In the event it starts, we're going to need to come back here and verify on the balancer what the timing is, and very quickly adjust it to 10 degrees advanced of top dead center. Since the ALDL connector is grounded out, the computer's not going to add extra time to the motor, so we know we're at 0 extra timing. We can set that once we're at 10 degrees top dead center as it's spinning. We can lock that distributor down and then pull the ground out of the ALDL connector. And once that's done, the computer will now control its timing. But it knows, because everything that it's based off of, or the way that it works, is that it's assuming that the engine is set at 10 degrees top dead center, or it will fire 10 degrees before that piston reaches top dead center on cylinder 1, every single time. So if it needs extra time, it knows to do a calculation like, okay, we know we're at least 10 degrees advanced at top dead center. 10 degrees before that piston reaches the top, we're going to be firing at 0 time. But if I want a little bit extra, I just add 2. I add 3. But it can't do that if, say, it's timed dead set at 0 and it's trying to add 2 or 3. It'll never reach the 13 or 14 it's trying to reach. So we need to lock that out. So all that said, let me stop explaining. Let me start showing. Let me grab a funnel, put oil in this thing. We'll get coolant in it, and then we'll go ahead and start. I'll ground out that connector, and we're going to turn the key and hope nothing catches fire, nothing sprays out any weird angles. This thing starts, this thing breaks in, and hopefully it's okay. And I don't know if I've discussed this up to this point. The clutch may not work. Because it's got a V6 clutch in it, which is right for a V6, but it has a 4-cylinder transmission. And a couple people, one with a Chevy V8, so I don't know how applicable it is, has had issues running this transmission with a 6-cylinder clutch. So if the engine will break in, I'll be really happy. Might be pulling the transmission back out again. If we do, that's a whole separate video, but I'll also show you another way to pull the transmission out. So you can decide which way you want to risk your life, whether it's with the big tilty board thing I showed you earlier or the other cattywampus thing I'm going to show you. But okay, let me get started. Alright. Trying something. If you don't have a proper break-in oil like this, like I used to not be able to get, just make sure you get a high zinc break-in additive. They sell it, and you just add it to your oil. But you do want to make sure that this thing's got a high zinc oil in it, actually every time. Even after initial start, you're going to want to make sure, like going forward with this thing's lifespan, it's running a zinc infused oil. And most modern motor oils don't come that way from the factory. You need to add it yourself, because most engines don't have these hydraulic flat tappet cams anymore. And a lot of people will prime an engine too beforehand. This thing where you pull the distributor out of it, put a dummy distributor in there that's been modified, hook up a drill, spin it at whatever RPM for 15 minutes, put oil in it. I'm not that high dollar of an operation here, so we're just gonna, cross our fingers. I fired up and broken in 5 or 6 of these, and that doesn't include customers' cars, other platforms that I've worked on that were flat tappet. The only one I've ever had go flat was the black car. I discussed that, I think, in my video with it. I had it go flat at 2,000 miles, which still a bizarre outlier. I've never seen that happen. I've never seen that happen to anybody. They usually go flat right at the startup. So pull this out. I don't have a rag handy. Just gonna do it really fast. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to put oil, we're going to put the coolant in it. What we're going to do is tilt the back of it up so we hopefully get all the air bubbles out of it as best we can, because we're not going to get to bleed this thing properly because we're breaking in the camshaft. But we're also going to leave the thermostat out for now, just so it'll flow coolant as much as possible. I'm going to pick this thing up. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and start adding coolant back here, but what we're going to do is watch for it to come out the front. I'll actually move you up there so you can see what I'm talking about. When it starts to pour out the front, you'll hear it, you'll see it. Run up there and cap it. That way we know that there's no air bubbles basically in the lower hoses. Hopefully there's none in the lower hoses and in the radiator itself at the front. And at that point it becomes just trying to make sure that we have as few as possible in the rear portion of the vehicle. This is also when we're going to look around and see, is coolant finally leaking out of this thing? If it is, we need to address those leaks immediately. So hopefully not. So let me move you though. All right. Coolant. Front lip. Yep, you can probably see it. Hope you can see it because I'm capping it. But that's how you know. That way you know we have antifreeze in the system all the way up to that height, and basically probably honestly about mid-engine block. So I'll move you back there. We'll keep topping it off. Basically, we've got it coming out the top. The heater core hose is filling. Almost there. Nothing pouring out the bottom yet. This is always fun. Let's see how much gas we can get in the car versus on the ground. Yeah, sure. Hope I hooked up all the gas lines. Pretty sure. Alright. That's about 5 gallons. That should be plenty. Cool. Let me show you how the last two things that we're going to do. I'll set up the wrench here for the distributor timing. And I'll show you how to ground out the connector inside, and then it's motor time. Let's see if it'll start. Alright guys, let me give you a quick rundown on what we're going to do for startup. So I've got one wrench on, let me see if I can show you, the distributor hold down bolt, and I've got it just barely loose so that I can just barely move it. That's all I'm going to need. And I'm not going to be able to get you in here to show you timing, but basically I have a timing light and it's hooked to cylinder 1, 12 volt ground off the battery. When this thing starts spinning, it should start flashing. And yeah, I'm not going to be able to show you, but down on the balancer, when it flashes, it's going to illuminate some marks down there. It'll give us an idea of timing. There's plenty of videos on that. I don't know that I can actually show you, so I think someone else will have to do that.
But inside, we've got the ALDL connector. That's this diagnostic connector in your console grounded out. The pin goes in those back two on the bottom. And the way you know you've got it grounded correctly is you turn the key, which this one doesn't even technically need. But you're gonna see the check engine light's gonna flash. 1, 2. Go on 1, 1, 2. What it's doing is it's giving you a code 12, which is the ECM's reporting in that the ECM's alive and awake. And if that's correct, we've got 12 volts. So when we put you on the stand, this garbage might start. Unground the connector, just see what it does. Alright guys, so some time has passed. I just want to give you a little bit of an update. What you just saw a second ago was me working on the car probably about a month or two ago. I've been busy with a lot of stuff, hadn't had a whole lot of time to really keep after it. The audio I realized wasn't very good, but it was just enough you could probably hear and see that it did start, it did make noise. Since then I had to go back through and start messing with this thing. I did find some vacuum leaks, I did have some stuff to address, but we're still not quite there. But I did want to go ahead and just get this edited and all put together because I had so much footage and it was so much time that I wanted to get this done. So let me show you how close it is currently, and it's actually infuriatingly close to starting. So as you can see, it is very close. It is frustratingly close. I've been fighting with this thing on and off to get it there. Just not quite there. Not sure what the actual issue is. If it's going to be a sensor, if it's going to be a ground problem, or what. But you will see it on another episode. I will get this thing figured out and get it all the way running. But it is very close. And I wanted to go ahead and put this video together because it's been so long since I put one out. I had all of this footage laying around. I figured there's no reason to just keep sitting on it and sitting on it and sitting on it until I finally got this done. You may or may not see this being the next video. I don't know exactly when I'll post another one. It may be some other project. There's plenty of other stuff breaking, things I need to do. And honestly, I can step away from it for a little bit, let my head clear on it, come back at it with a fresh mind, and probably figure this thing out in a weekend. But again, thank you for watching. I really appreciate you guys. For all 12 of you that watch all this stuff, it's fun that people are watching. If you want to help me out, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. It really helps. It makes the algorithm work. It helps my videos get watched. It gets subscribers, and it's good. It makes me excited to keep messing with this stuff. So again, thank you for watching. You guys have the rest of your day.